What's up, humans? What's up, familia? And welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Friday night, everybody. I hope if you're going out, please don't drink and drive. Be careful. Take an Uber. No need to risk yourself or your loved ones. They're waiting for you home, so please don't drink and drive. So Jesse did drop the episode that he was going to drop, and he did say the things that I told you I saw. He was there with Mr. James Fowler, who revealed a number of things that have me concerned. But the most important aspect of this is the fact that the FAA is doing separate things compared to the military. They're like running their own thing in terms of whatever those things are in the sky, whether they're drones or something else. They're not being completely transparent. And 4 days ago, I saw an article that I'm going to show you guys. So here it is. It's from Vice. And this is arguably one of the very first times in which a collision mid-air between a UFO and a fighter jet happens. And Vice were the ones who got the scoop. And I'm going to read it to you guys. It's not really that long of an article. And then I'm going to show you a little bit of coverage that News Nation did on this collision with this, between this UFO and this fighter jet. And then I'm going to talk to you about the concerns that I have of Skywatcher and what they're doing. So let's go first with the Vice article that goes like this. UFOs are swarming U.S. military zones, and one just crashed into a fighter jet, written by Ashley Fike on May 19th. And it goes like this. An unidentified flying object literally crashed into a U.S. fighter jet during a training mission over Arizona. It seems our real lives getting closer to an X-Files plot than we'd probably like. It's real. And it's just one of dozens of increasingly bizarre mid-air incidents that military pilots have been reporting over restricted airspace in the Southwest. The collision happened in January when an F-16 Viper jet struck what officials later described as an orange-white uncrewed aerial system, or UAS. The FAA confirmed the object hit the plane's canopy mid-flight. That's the transparent bubble that protects the pilot's face. No word yet on how damaged it was, but it sounds wild. Just know this. It was one of 4 separate drone encounters reported that day. And that's only scratching the surface. UFOs are everywhere. What's going on? Since 2020, military pilots flying training routes over Arizona have reported dozens of encounters with strange objects. Some were logged as drones. Others defied easy explanation. Metallic spheres moving in groups, 8 silver UAS flying in tight formation at 20,000 feet, and one suspiciously fast object tearing through the sky at Mach 0.75, or about 500 miles per hour at 33,000 feet. For context, your average off-the-shelf drone barely clears 500 feet and makes out around 45 knots. On March 25, 2021, 2 F-35 pilots near Casa Grande described a large white UAS hovering motionless at 24,000 feet. Something they said resembled either a small plane or a really big drone. Another F-35 crew spotted a glowing blue-green object while cruising at 36,000 feet. At that altitude, you're usually sharing airspace with commercial jets, not UFOs. And I quote, "These reports are coming constantly," former Pentagon UAP investigator Lou Elizondo told News Nation, pointing to Arizona-Mexico border as a repeat offender. Some officials suspect advanced cartel surveillance drones. Others think it's something more mysterious. Either way, the technology doesn't match what's publicly known. And I quote, "Maybe they've got tech we're not used to seeing in the drone space," said former CBP official Ron Vitiello. He cited cartel money and its tendency to innovate fast to keep selling their poison, quote unquote. From May 2023 to June 2024, the US government logged 757 sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena. Just 49 have been marked as case closed, with more objects appearing in restricted airspace and one now confirmed to have struck a fighter jet. The question is no longer if something is out there, but who's behind it and how close these encounters are going to get. So it finally happened, folks. We got a collision, something that we feared, and something that I would bet it leaked because Vice reported on it. But I would bet that way more have happened than the ones that we know about, which is just one ever. But more, you can be certain that more have happened. And to be more certain, I'm just going to show you this coverage from News Nation where they invite Lou Elizondo, who supposedly was going to take a break, but he didn't. And he gave his insight into what this might be. So here's Lou.
New report by the Federal Aviation Administration that admits in 2023 an orange and white UFO crashed into an Air Force fighter jet during a routine training mission. And the UFO caused so much damage to the $60 million jet that it was forced to land. The UFO that crashed into the fighter plane, what do we know about that?
Well, the problem is that we really don't know much. And therein lies the challenge, right? When you have an incident involving a $40 million combat aircraft, and only the details now are starting to be released through Freedom of Information Act and FAA, there's a problem. Now, we've been saying for the last 8 years since I've been out that there have been dozens upon dozens of these near-air collisions that have occurred with military and civilian and commercial pilots. This is not just happening with military aircraft. Now, this is the first time we heard of an actual mid-air collision, but some of these objects are coming so close to combat aircraft that they are literally splitting that combat formation right down the middle. So you can imagine how close combat aircraft fly when they're flying in formation. Now imagine a UAP coming in right between them. So this is nothing new. And I think, you mentioned earlier, why is the administration having the conversation now? And I think it's because this has really become the worst kept secret in American history. It's been 80 years of suppression and misinformation, and we're at the point now where I think the administration realizes that America can handle the truth.
Okay, so we got that right, and then today, Jesse Michels dropped that interview with James Fowler.
What's your take on the Jersey drone situation? We were just talking about that before we started rolling, and it still feels so frustratingly inconclusive. You have the White House saying that they were FAA research drones after Trump, I think, told his special assistant, go look into this, and that was just such an unsatisfying answer for so many residents of Jersey. What do you think was happening?
I think one of our adversaries has the ability to fly with impunity and operate in our airspace, and we are helpless to stop it.
That's insane. That's really scary. And any reason to believe that you can discuss publicly? Or?
I think that Langley Air Force Base, based on news articles, was probably done by China.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was 17 days of just completely unperturbed incursion.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, we know that the HAB, the balloon that flew through, was from China.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only one entity that has a past performance, to my knowledge, of flying in our airspace with apparent impunity, with us not doing anything to stop it, and that's China. So why wouldn't you naturally arrive at a sustained intrusion in our airspace? Why wouldn't you assume it's China until proven otherwise?
Okay, so if you saw my previous video, I talk about China and how they, a general from the Air Force just said on the Sean Ryan show that China is mining helium-3. I was corrected that it's not a mineral. I don't know what it is. It's a gas, I guess. But he said that. And now that we see that James Fowler is saying that he believes the Langley incursions are from China, it kind of tracks that maybe they already know how to use helium-3 as some kind of a fuel or a conductor so they can have these capabilities, because these drones although they're really varied, because the ones that were in New Jersey are way slower than the ones that were seen in the West Coast in Oregon by a number of commercial airplanes. The ones that were like red dots, those were hypersonic speeds. And the ones in the East Coast were slower, but big and undetectable, and we couldn't track them back to where they came from. We didn't know where they came from either. Those are presumably similar drones to the ones at Langley. And the fact that he's saying that now just tells me that the FAA has a mess going on. They're not communicating with anybody from the military. The military is way, way quiet, suspiciously quiet. They should have made a statement by this point. It's out of control. And one of these things already collided with one of these fighter jets. And that's a loss of tens of millions of dollars. So we need some answers to what the hell those things are. If you guys do know what they are, you got to come out and say it. And I'm not saying I don't believe James Fowler. He may be telling the truth. The thing is, man, many of the things that James said with Jesse about Skywatcher, for example, that he's been researching this for 5 years already. And that means Skywatcher has been researching this for 5 years because he is an important and integral part of Skywatcher. And I don't know if Alex Klokos is the one who's funding the project, but if it's not just him, it would be nice to know who's funding you guys. Because I've seen a lot of people I respect, asking, where do you guys get your funding from? And I think it's a fair question, because we would like to know. If we know where the funding is from, we also know, or could potentially know, the intent that these companies have. And Jake Barber said in one of the interviews that Skywatcher is the only company that is doing this publicly, but there are more companies that are doing this privately. So we would like to know, to the only one that is public right now, where are you being funded from? And also, sorry, but I'm not buying James Fowler saying that he went to people in the government and he asked them and showed them the data of the many UAPs that he went through with Jesse on this show. He went through all the shapes from 1 to 9, but he said that when he approached people in government, scientists with clearances and all that, they had absolutely no idea of what these things were. And either Fowler is not being completely transparent here, or the government entity he approached is not even aware that these aerospace companies may already have something working. Because as I already told you guys, I did speak to someone at Skywatcher, and they told me that they believe, they didn't say they knew, they said that they believe that some of these craft might be human made, maybe reverse engineered. I don't know. But and a lot of these other craft were anomalous. So, and he also talked about the blue team and red team. He already knows how to identify which ones are hostile and which ones are not. And Jesse asked him if he would say, like, give out the entire information. And he just said that he was waiting for the government to stop him from coming forward and saying this information. I would assume that he would come out and say it publicly if the government doesn't try to stop him. I don't know how long that will take, but that's interesting. But yeah, there are a lot of questions that I have to James or Jake or whoever can answer, concerns that the people have. And it'd be nice if you guys could answer them. But the overall theme here is that the government entities know what's going on, and they're not telling people what's going on. They're sending mixed messages depending on the agency. The FAA were the ones who announced this collision. Meanwhile, the military not saying a peep. And then Fowler saying that these are Chinese, while the White House is saying that these are FAA approved. So who's telling the truth? What's going on? We would love to know. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about this, about the very first collision that leaked, because I'm sure there's been a bunch more. between a UFO and a fighter jet? And what do you think about James Fowler's interview with Jesse? What were your main concerns? I'm going to leave everything in the description. What do you think about him saying that he believes the Langley incursions were China? Let me know in the comments. I'm very interested to know what you think. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Any of those things is free. It takes you only a few seconds, and it's what helps the channel the most. So that'd be more than enough for you to do for the channel. Thank you. But if you want to support us in any other way, there are a few links down there that you can choose from, many options, and you can also support us on KGRA, or you can also consider maybe becoming a member. Anything you do or choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. And that's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive, always. Bye.